Hey guys, I'm back with my another video, and in this video, I'm having my friend Vaishak Rajiv, and who we call RV. So he's going to share his views how he got a PhD in abroad. So let's know his journey. Hi RV, how are you?
Hi, Jaya. I'm Vaishak, as Jaya has introduced. I'm doing fine. I hope you're also doing fine.
Yeah.
I'm right now a PhD student enrolled at Southern Methodist University. It's in Texas, in USA. And I just finished my first year of coursework, and currently I'm engaged in some summer research work. And things
Mhm.
have been going good.
Yeah, good to know. So, can you tell us what are your academic qualifications before this? How from where you did a BSc, MSc, and now PhD?
Yeah, prior to my PhD, I was in IIT Hyderabad doing
Yeah.
my MSc Physics with
Mm,
Jaya. So,
mm,
and before that, I was in ARSD College in Delhi University, and I
mhm.
did my BSc honors in physics from there. And
Okay.
right now, I'm here.
Yeah. So, how did you get to know, first of all, that, yeah, these are the chances? And are you having any friends over there before, like, going into there in the university? How did you apply? What is the process? And how did you get to know that,
So,
yeah, I should do PhD in abroad? Why it's better, or what did you think?
yeah, first of all, I had no idea of going to, apply abroad for PhD.
Mm-hmm.
My aim was to stay in India only. But then after entering IIT Hyderabad during my masters, my professors there, they encouraged me and pushed me to apply towards foreign universities, US, Europe, etc. And to be honest, it's very helpful because the field that I work in, which is astronomy and astrophysics, right
Oh.
now in India there aren't many opportunities. uh, I would say that compared to a field like nanotechnology or material physics or anything, astronomy and astrophysics has relatively lesser number of seats in India.
Hmm.
And compared to India, there are a lot of vacancies with good funding in US, Europe, etc. So my professors encouraged me to apply to those places, and yeah, I had to give a few examinations and then spend some time to research about where to apply and all. And yeah,
Hmm.
that's basically summed up.
So, what is your like field of study that you have told in a broad way, like astronomy towards astrophysics? So, what is like right now? Can you narrow it down? Like some is there are there any particular topics or something in astrophysics also?
Uh, so the one good thing about applying to a US university is that you do not have to pre-decide what area you're going to work in.
Oh.
They're very flexible about where you want to work.
Mm-hmm.
So right now I'm working in the field of dark energy and
Okay.
spectroscopy of supernovae. But if I want a change of topic, I can try that in the next summer. And if whatever suits me, I can proceed with that for my PhD thesis. So the broad topic has to remain the same, which is astronomy and astrophysics.
Mm-hmm.
But the subtopics where you specialize in can change after 2 years.
Okay. It's nice, like we get to know whether we are what we are good at, and then we can try
Yeah,
some other also, like we can change our
yeah,
things.
yeah. It's
Good.
it's we are not really sure about whether we are proficient in this area or not, or whether this area is interesting for us. So 3 to 4 months of project in this particular area, I
Mhm.
mean, it gives an idea of whether you're good for this area.
Yeah, correct. Actually, one of some like follower, my channel follower, he commented that he want one video on astrophysics. So right now I got that. So it's good. And can you properly like describe like how what is eligible? Sorry, can you properly describe what is the eligibility and how did you get to know about the forms? Like how did you apply it first of all? Like how did you
Yeah.
started?
So basically, there are two terms in which US universities accept students. It is commonly called the fall term, which begins in August, September, and the spring term, which begins in January. So I applied to the fall 2020 term, and for that, I had started applying an year before.
Oh,
So
1 year before.
if you want admit to fall 2021,
Mhm.
that's the upcoming session, you should have started applying in November or December of the previous year.
Okay.
So
Mhm.
the application process basically involves a few test scores that you have to give. You
Mhm.
have to give the English language test, which is known as TOEFL. Some
Mhm.
people also give the IELTS. And TOEFL tests basically your reading, writing, listening, and speaking sections.
Mhm.
And it is followed by the GRE examinations, which are the graduate record examinations. They are of also two types. One is the general one that everyone usually gives. It
Mhm.
tests your verbal reasoning skills, your quantitative reasoning skills, and also how your analytical writing is. That is, when you're given a problem, how would you tackle it?
Mhm.
And the other exam is called the GRE subject test. It's not common for everyone. Engineering people don't have to give it. It's common for people who are trying to get a PhD in physics or chemistry or mathematics.
Mhm.
So after giving these exams, you have to submit these test scores, and along with that, you have to submit your resume or CV, and then you have to submit your grade cards of bachelor's, master's, etc. Whatever you have done prior to that. And one other eligibility is that if you're done only bachelor's, you need to have 4 years of undergraduate degree. So like BTech people can apply right after their BTech,
Hmm. But
but
BSc?
for BSc people, they have to do MSc to apply for a PhD program.
Okay.
I mean,
Mhm.
this is the general trend in most universities in US. I don't know,
Mhm.
some people have some relaxations, but everyone has to have a minimum 4 year of undergraduate experience.
Mhm. Okay. And what exams you told, like GRE and TOEFL we have to give before that, but are there any other entrance exams like which separate universities used to take? Like I have heard some of my friends, they used to give some, and after these English test exam also they have to give some exams which are conducted by universities, their own exams. Did you also?
Yeah, so I never faced that problem. Uh, I don't know why. Maybe it's common in some universities where the number of seats are very low, but the number of applicants are very high. So on an average, there are like 10 seats or 20 seats in a PhD program,
Mhm.
and sometimes it can go up to 40. And there are applicants up of like 500 or 1,000 minimum. So when that happens, they don't need an exam. They sometimes take an interview, which is not very conceptual. They just basically test how good your conversation skill is, and do you have the research acumen for that. And they test you on what area you worked in. For example, if you had some internship or you had a master's thesis, so they might ask you what exactly you did there and what all scientific tools you use there, and do you have any publication or etc. But publication is not a very crucial factor in US universities. It
Mhm.
is just one of the factors. But the other important factors that they decide or they select a candidate is equally distributed upon how good your CV is, how good your grades are in bachelor's or master's, how well you did in your tests or TOEFL, GRE, etc.
Mhm.
And other two important factors are one, statement of purpose.
Mhm.
It's basically a 1 page, 2 page summary of what you did and what you would like to do if they offered you a seat there. And the last one is about the references. So you need to have at least 3 referees from your undergraduate or postgraduate institutions who
Mhm.
can vouch for you during your application process. And I've heard that uh, the better the references are, more the chances of getting an admission is.
Yeah. So, like you said, ki after this application is submitted, where you submit all your scorecards and everything, then they
Yeah.
shortlist you on the basis of that grades, GRE score, everything, and then they conduct some interview, right? And
Yeah.
then you are selected after that. Okay.
Yes.
Okay. So,
So there's no screening
Did you choose your professor before like applying, or after application process you got selected and then you have to choose which professor you want to work with?
So one good thing about US is that it's not predetermined. Like I said, you don't have to choose a guide well before joining there. So what I did was I tried to email prospective guides in various universities, and I asked whether they have vacancies in their labs when I apply.
Hmm.
So after that, I got a few positive responses, and I only applied to those universities from where I got a reply. So that is a very important task. So if you don't do that and you apply, it is possible that that particular professor does not have any vacancies or funding for that particular year. So
Hmm.
then you might have to, work for a project with someone else or something. But yeah, but after you get selected, suppose you get selected in XYZ university and you go there,
Hmm.
it's not completely necessary that you have to choose that person as your PhD guide. You can choose that person as your first project guide,
Hmm.
or you're the second project guide, whatever. And then if you feel comfortable working with them, then you can continue in their lab. Otherwise, you can switch, you can have a minor switch, like not a drastic change of field, but
Hmm.
you can say if you're working in some theoretical field of astronomy, you can switch to some observational astronomy. So in that way, it's flexible. You don't have to worry that you'll be stuck with the same guide.
Okay. And how did you choose which university you should apply for?
So that's a bit, a long part of the procedure of application. You have to start checking respective universities websites, who all are working in whichever field. So it's
Mhm.
not necessary that someone who is working in, say, black hole research is in every university. So
Mhm.
you may see that, okay, there are 5 universities with professors working in this area. So you'll say, okay, I'll apply to these 5 universities. And
Mhm.
after that, then you'll see when their deadlines are, and what projects they have, those faculties. And that is the first process, how you choose which university you want to apply. And then the second thing is you might want to check how good their research atmosphere is. For example, obviously if you go to a very high university, very top university, their atmosphere would be really good. But due to the number of admits they take, for example, if they take 40 people, 40 students for their PhD, it's not necessary that you might get a chance to work with someone you wanted. You
Mhm.
might lose out on that chance. But if you apply to a relatively smaller school with equally good research opportunities, for example, in my university, I think there are hardly 10 incoming graduate students. So
Mhm.
what happens is that the department is smaller. You get to interact with all the faculty and students, and the chance of working in your interest area is more compared to, a larger school.
Mhm. Okay.
So these should be basically the criteria of how you choose your university.
Mm-hmm. And how did you start preparing for like a statement of purpose? Like, how did you prepare? Sometimes we need some of sources. Hmm.
So Google is the best source, to be honest. And you can find a lot of successful statement of purposes there. People who got admits in, say, Cambridge or Stanford or anything,
Hmm.
any university. You see a successful statement of purpose, you get an idea of what kind of information you.
So, you started preparing in during MSc only?
Yeah, during my MSc project, I started preparing. I
Hmm.
applied to a couple of universities during that time, which I got rejected in. And then right after MSc, I started applying to more universities in US, and I think I applied to.
You started applying for US only, or you also targeted like other countries like Europe, Germany, in Europe? You applied
Yeah,
for
yeah.
Germany or other
So
countries, Japan?
apart from India, a global hub for PhD is common in US, Europe, Australia, Japan, and Singapore.
Hmm.
So I applied to a couple of universities in Australia,
Hmm.
a few universities in Europe, and then US. And the Europe ones, I wasn't successful in clearing the final interviews in a couple of places.
Mhm.
And the good thing about Europe is that the application is free. Entire process is free.
Yeah.
You don't have to spend anything,
Mm.
which is very good for our pockets. And but the problem is the seats are relatively low compared to say US, and that's why the chance of getting selected is less. And also the style of PhDs in Europe is different. You don't have any coursework unlike US, and you start working in a lab as soon as you enter. And and to be honest, in astronomy field there were lesser openings in Europe compared to US, so that is also one of the reasons why I focus more on the US side.
So how many openings you had in your universities when you were applying
So so
around?
the one thing about US is that there's no specified number of openings. They say that this year there are 10 seats for PhDs. You may come there, you may work in high energy physics or astrophysics, but in total there are 10 seats.
Mm-hmm.
So they don't allot like there are 5 seats for astrophysics or something. So you can join there and then you can decide where you want to go. But when it comes to Europe, they may send out a notice that okay, there's one opening or there's two opening, and then you have to, really compete it out with all the applicants for that.
Mm-hmm. And like typically like in India, PhD is typically 5 years, but it can obviously extend or it can reduce also. It depends on the professor and student how much they are working and like how
Yeah.
early they finish. So in
Yeah.
US, what is the typical period?
Uh, so on an average, from what I've read and what I've heard from people, it takes anywhere around 5 to 6 years for completing a PhD in US. So
Okay.
I think the minimum would be 4.5 or 5 years. I don't think so many.
And how much funding you usually get, like one student there generally?
So on an average, it varies from whatever city you are in. From city to city, it varies. For say, if it's New York, it's a very costly place. So on an average, I think a student might receive monthly $3,000 plus. And if it's you know relatively cheap.
So guys, hope you find this video useful, and whatever Rajiv, let's ask him one advice for you guys. So Rajiv, what advice you want to give to my like who are following me my channel? So any advice which might be helpful for them during their preparation?
One piece of advice that I would like to give is that be active, be very active online. You might miss out on some good opportunity just because you didn't look up for it. For example, I lost a couple of good opportunities in Europe just because I got late in applying there. The deadline passed. So be very active in searching for positions.
Comment whatever queries you have or email me, and I'll put my email ID in the description box. So and meet you guys in my next video. And thanks once again, Arvi, for your time. So
Thank you so much, Jaya, and you're doing really a good job.
thank you. Okay, bye bye.